Hello, family, and welcome to another episode of Role Model Experts Cafe. I am your host, Dr. L, the Parent Whisperer, and today with me I have the amazing Miss Martha Alexander. I think your middle initial is D. Am I correct on
It
that?
is Martha Davis
I
Alexander.
remember that. I've had a lot of encounters with Martha. I've known her for a while. She's an amazing human being, a very fun human being, and I'm very excited to have her here to talk on something that is a new focus. So I'm very excited. Martha, welcome to the show. I think maybe again, and thank you for being here. Tell us a little bit more about what you're up to today and why this topic is important. Why should our audience members tune in? Which, by the way, thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Dr. L, for the beautiful introduction, as well as for having me on your show. Hi, everybody. So I want to talk about people pleasing and people pleasing as a parent. So I am a recovering people pleaser, and I raised all three of my kids. They're now 18, 20, and 21. All three of them were raised while I was a people pleaser. And it's important because people pleasers are focus, and I'm going to speak from my point of view. Our focus is survival. Our amygdala, right, says that we have to be liked and accepted in order to survive, in order to thrive. We have to be part of the tribe, because in cave days, which is when it was developed, right, which is how this survival skill was developed, if we weren't liked, if we were outcast, if we were loners, we didn't survive. It wasn't possible. And while that's not true today, we can still survive as a loner. Prove that during COVID, I guess. It still is a huge part of our focus. And when your focus is survival, you aren't in the present moment. You are always searching for the next person to like you. Right. So for me, and I'm just going to speak for myself, for me, I spent all my time volunteering. I volunteered for everything. They needed a PTA president. I was there, man. They needed someone to run a fundraiser. I was there. They needed a Cub Scout leader. Now, that one I actually loved doing. So I am so glad I said yes to that one. All right. But I said yes, right? And my husband and I practiced me saying no. We knew how bad it was and how much time I was spending not in the family, not present with the family, but rather doing things so other people would like me, being everywhere else so that I would be liked and accepted. And my kids didn't get as much of my time. And even when I practiced saying no, yes came out of my mouth, and I could not figure it out. I didn't know why I was saying yes when I wanted to say no. Right. And it's because I was programmed, right? It was that inner programming that said yes. There are days today that I still say yes, and then I go, wait a minute, no. So I'll give you an example with my daughter. And I was a people pleaser with my kids too. My daughter, when she was a senior in high school, she didn't have a driver's license yet. And her boyfriend was visiting from out of town, and he didn't have his driver's license either. And she said, hey, can he take me to school? And because I almost always said yes to her, that's not true anymore, I said, sure. And then I went, whoa, wait a minute. I took 2 steps, and then I turned around and said, stop. No, I am sorry. That was an automatic yes that I didn't mean to say. He doesn't have a license. He won't be covered by my insurance. So no, I will be driving you. If he wants to come in the car, he's more than welcome to come in the car. But no, that just isn't going to happen. But the point of that story is I was so used to saying yes that I had a really hard time with the word no. And here's what I want to say. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to give a reason. You don't have to give an excuse. You don't have to say anything but no.
I like that. I like
no.
that.
It is a complete sentence in and of itself. No one needs more than that.
So Martha, I can imagine how this can also create confusion for the kids, because based on what they know about you, it's like, why is mom not being authentic? Why is she saying
Right.
something when she means something else, right?
Well,
And
that's
we're
true
role modeling
too,
that
right?
behavior, right? And then I'm going to put my own spin on this, if you don't mind, for just a second.
Feel
Many
free.
of the people on the spectrum have a difficulty distinguishing or separating self from the outside world. So what ends up happening is many times they might sign up or do things not because that's what they stand for, but just because they can't differentiate that limit between themselves and the others. And this is something, if you have children that are on the spectrum, you really want to tune into this message that Martha has to say, because you really need to be very clear and concise about this line between where you end and the world begins. So thank you, Martha, for talking about this
Well,
important topic.
Dr. L, that's also true for people pleasers. You don't have to be on the spectrum to have that difficulty. As a people pleaser, I was a chameleon. I learned it from my parents' divorce. And that's my 7-year-old brain saying, right, I need to be who someone else wants me to be. So I had no clue who my authentic person was. So I'm not sure my kids had a clue who I was authentically. I don't know how they could, because I didn't know who I was authentically, who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up. I took on other people's expectations, or how other people said I should be, or what I should be doing, or what I thought in my head, who I thought in my head they wanted me to be. Whether I was right or not is immaterial. That results in is exhaustion, resentment, overwhelm, because you're changing depending upon who you're with. And for my kids, right, I would say yes when I meant no. And when we had to backtrack it, because I hadn't cleared something with my husband, or we weren't on the same page. Not that everything has to, that's not quite how I meant it, but as parents, you kind of want to be on the same page when you're parenting. You want to be doing things consistently as a unified front. And when I wasn't doing that, not only did my husband become the bad guy in it, which was totally unfair, but I also had to sometimes take things back, which meant that I wasn't creating that trusting relationship. And that was devastating for me when my kids said, you say yes, but you're going to come back with a no. And it was really a hard boundary for me to develop.
Martha, you got my brain running. I'm just thinking in love languages, like my love language is acts of service. So as a person that's how he shows love, I tend to do that a lot. And it kind of lands me in the same exact situation where I'm doing these things where I'm trying to do one thing, but I'm landing in a completely different area. And I can see how this ends up causing people to get really busy, do lots of stuff for other people, but in the end still end up very unhappy, because either they don't see it reciprocated, or that it's not aligned with their values and their goals and things like that. So very important topic. So Martha, what are some of the challenges that people in all of these different areas that we're talking about, people pleasers, face that they have to realize and start?
They become overwhelmed because they say yes to everything. Just what you said, right? You just said it beautifully. Even when it's not aligned with their values, or not aligned with what moves them forward too. They also, when you volunteer for something, or you agree to do something that isn't really your bailiwick, oh my gosh, that's an old word that ages me, which is really in alignment with your talents and your skills, right?
Right.
And you mean the best intentions, right? You mean to take over something and do something. You are not the best person to do that. So the organization would benefit better, or whoever it is would benefit more by having somebody who knows how to do that. So if someone needed someone to run a fundraiser, I am not the best person to do that. Numbers aren't my gig. Details aren't my thing. I go a totally different area. So, and while I volunteered for that, it would end up being a mess because I was not the best person to look at those details and do those things. And yet, so there was resentment on both sides, right? I wasn't as clear as I could have been. And I was spending a lot of time away from my family doing something that I thought was good. So knowing where your genius is and serving in your genius. So my why, very similar to you, Dr. L, how I operate is I believe success happens when I contribute to other people, the success of other people. That is my zone of genius. That is my why. That is hardwired into me. So I also tend to put a lot out there that isn't necessarily the best success. So I have to stop myself and say, is this really the best use of my time and my skill? Or could the place I'm volunteering or where I'm offering my services benefit from someone who is even more skilled in this than I am, right? Giving someone else the opportunity to step up and do what needs to be done. People pleasers also lay in bed at night. I swear, I would lay in bed at night and agonize over every interaction I had that day. Not necessarily with my kids, although sometimes it was with my kids, with my husband, with other people, with people I wanted to be friends with, right? I would agonize and replay that conversation over and over and over until in my own head I'd perfected it and it was okay now. But calling out all the mistakes, being so unkind to myself on just being me, right? Showing up and maybe saying something that wasn't perhaps perfect. And trust me, I'm never perfect. So it was a long conversation with myself, Dr. L. And that is, it's exhausting to go over everything that you've said all the time, every night. My husband would be, what are you doing? Like, I'm blah, 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 blah. He's like, oh, please stop. It was fine. They like you fine. Something you said isn't going to change that. If they have an issue, they'll come talk to you. I was like, no. This is life or death. For me, it was life or death. Are they going to like me? And if they don't, what can I do to make sure that they like me tomorrow? Constant.
So I know that no was really difficult for me. I know that realizing that, hey, this is not aligned with my value. And if I say no, it's not going to hurt the other. All of those things were things that I had to work really hard on myself to achieve. So I know that is a big challenge. So what are some of the suggestions that you have for audience members that after watching this, they can start stepping in the right direction and not solely focus on people pleasing?
So my first suggestion, and you guys can try it right now while you're listening, is to say your name out loud. It sounds silly, but it is a very simple grounding that I learned from Amy Jo Ellis. It is, I am, and I'll just do mine. I am Martha Mary Davis Alexander and only Martha Mary Davis Alexander.
Ooh.
It shifts your energy. Try it, Dr. L. Your full birth name. Full birth name.
I am Ali Lankarani and only Ali Lankarani.
Do you feel a shift in your energy?
Yeah. As soon as you say only, I'm like, yeah, that's me. I'm not supposed to be anybody else.
That's right. So other energy that comes to you, right? I can feel it going down my meridian, right? I can feel that energy, that shift.
That's
right.
really cool.
I can feel that I am grounded and that I am me. And from there, if you take a couple of deep breaths, abdominal breaths, you can get to the place where you know what you want, right? Because you're in there, you're hidden by a survival mechanism, but you're in there. What do you want? So every morning, wake up, ground yourself. You can have your cup of coffee first if you need. Ground yourself, say your name, take a couple of breaths. And what is your intention for that day? What do you want your day to look like? What would be a perfect day for you, given where you are? And then take the steps to make that happen. And if you're in a group or you're somewhere, you can say your name. You don't have to do that like out in a meeting or whatever, but say it to yourself, right? It still works. Say it to yourself and then make an authentic decision based upon you. And it's your birth name, by the way, because that's what you're known by in the universe. You can say,
Martha, I have this artistic license for creativity, if that's okay. But I'm going to suggest that the parents actually have their children try this as well, because there is so much demand with social media and coaches and school, and it's easy for kids to kind of forget about who they are, especially when they're trying to set their own identities. So that's
brilliant suggestion. Teach your kids how to do it so they can stand in their authentic selves and know what they want, what is right, what's in alignment with them. Because when you say your name, you know what's in alignment with you, right? You know, you have it. Experiment with it. If it doesn't work, it may be that you don't like your name and you need to do some work on falling in love with yourself and your name, attaching to your name. And there are ways to do that.
Martha, I can see there is so much depth to this. Just that one sentence, there is like every word in there could have a lot of other stuff attached to it. So how can people connect with you more and find out more how to be supported and where to look for information?
Yeah, thanks. So my website is courageouslyoucoaching.com, or you can reach me at marthadalexander@gmail.com. You can call me 925-899-3882. I love phone calls, texts, however you want to reach me. I also have a live podcast every Thursday on the Going Solo Network, which is WGSN-DB. I gave you the links so that they're there. Listen in. I talk about people pleasing. That is my big deal. In fact, tomorrow I will be talking about the freedom of boundaries, because people pleasers don't believe in setting boundaries, Dr. L.
Right?
And I'll tell you why. We can't set boundaries because if we need to please someone and it's outside our boundaries, that's like a survival nightmare, right?
Yep. I know.
But when you set boundaries, it actually sets you free to say, no, that's not going to work for me.
Right.
Or no,
yeah.
no, period.
Guys, this requires work. This is not something that you just say, okay, I'm going to do it, because it's a habit that you probably have been working on and doing all your life. So it requires some undoing. It requires some support and accountability. So having a network, having a group to do this definitely is going to go a long way. I would even suggest, while you're listening to it, have your children kind of listen to it in the background as well. Probably, I don't know if it's just adult information or the kids can listen to it, but this
I'm a kid-friendly podcast.
Very cool. So I want to encourage you guys to not only connect with Martha, but also make sure that you role model this behavior for your children, that it is okay to not have all the answers. It is okay to reach out for support and community, and show them that you are a human being, and just like them, you are always looking for support as well. So model the behavior, connect with Martha. Tons of good stuff there. She's also fun to hang out with, and then we'll go from there. So check the links in the description. If you haven't already done so, make sure you click subscribe on the channel as well, so you get the latest updates as far as the experts, the gifts, and the amazing stuff that they bring, such as Martha has just done. And Martha, thank you so much for stepping up and sharing this important topic and taking time out of your busy schedule. Any final words for our audience members before we finish?
If you are a people pleaser, You don't have to be. It's a survival. It's not really living. You can actually have your own dream and follow it, and people will love you and like you more. You will find your tribe, I promise.
Martha
Guaranteed.
gave the promise. I give you permission. Give yourself a permission. Stop being a people pleaser.
Go. That's
Right?
it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys on future episodes. Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.